We have been getting lots and lots of questions specifically in the airline arena. There's lots of things going on right now, and we're hoping you can explain some of them to us. Namely, airfares are increasing. They've been increasing since the pandemic. We've got a lot of changes happening on the corporate contracting side. And then there's that third element of distribution. So I want to be able to cover those three topics off in somewhat layman's terms, so we can explain to a wider audience kind of what's going on and what's causing some of these increases. So I'm hoping that you can maybe kick us off by answering, I guess, the first one. Why are rates still increasing, and what's behind it?
Yeah. So yeah, excited to be on this call. And some people call it crazy times in the airline industry. Some other would call it exciting. But yeah, it definitely is a volatile situation right now. And the major reason why these airfares are going up, and obviously there's different ways to look at it. Airfares are going up. Nominally, if you look at inflation adjusted numbers, that looks a little different. So I don't think airfare increases have outpaced inflation since the pandemic, but it also depends really on the market, right? Capacity is pretty much back, so we are, I think, officially done with COVID. Certain markets in Asia are not yet done, so we definitely see there's some effects there. But generally speaking, domestic US, transatlantic, etc., we're seeing that COVID is behind us in terms of demand, in terms of supply. Unfortunately, we still have some restriction. That's one of the factors. There is an airline pilot shortage. There is an aircraft order or delivery shortage. Oil prices unfortunately have risen, adding some pressure to the airlines. And even though there are maybe some shortages with pilot and some staffing, the new labor deals are quite, let's say, generous for the employees and tougher for the airlines to figure that out on the cost side. So it's really labor, it's oil. It's again a restriction in terms
Supply
of
and
aircraft,
demand.
supply and demand situation, and an extra kicker is the air traffic controller situation. Right, we're down significant numbers of air traffic controllers. I think just in the U.S. market, there's some numbers. I think Buttigieg said 3,000 people. Just for the New York market, it turns out that it's about 8% cancellations for airlines, and these are planned, scheduled cancellations just because of air traffic control. So restricted supply with, let's say, normal demand, unfortunately, to higher fares, and that's really a summary of what leads to the higher fares.
So we have higher prices because of all of these kind of big market factors. What about in the corporate contracting area? I know we have started to see discounts decline because a lot of these contracts have been extended since before the pandemic even, right? And now they've got enough data behind these contracts to be able to kind of realign them.
Right. So what we're seeing at a macro level is corporate travel has not returned as much as the leisure travel, right? So overall, corporate travel appears less important for the airlines in terms of share of revenue. Within the corporate segment, the larger corporate organizations have returned less than the small, medium-sized enterprises. So what unfortunately airlines are looking at is the importance in terms of revenue share of the larger corporate clients may not be as important as it used to be. Could be temporary, of course, right? I mean, again, the numbers are still rising, and when we just look at our clients, we definitely see those numbers getting higher and higher. But realistically, based on what airlines report, what we are seeing, we're probably only back between 70 and 85%. So what that leads to is some airlines have completely changed their strategy, for example, American, and some others have not changed their strategy at all. And there's some that are in between. And what we are seeing is, depending on the strategy, some clients, again, even within that general 70 to 85% share of pre-COVID, may not have reached their goals. So airlines also then have to look at, hey, is this still a client we want to continue to invest on with discounts, with benefits, etc. So there's a lot of different things at play here. But in general, it comes down to American Airlines is very extreme. having changed their strategy completely. And that change also affect their corporate contracting.
The other key piece that we haven't really touched on, but I think will be impacted as well, is how is NDC and distribution going to potentially change air contracts moving forward? What are you thinking?
It possibly could affect it quite significantly, depending on your program and how you like to run it. But generally speaking, right now, when you negotiate with an airline, you oftentimes negotiate a discount, and in return, you have to promise some sort of share or volume commitment. In the future, you will be able to negotiate bundles. When I say the future, I know NDC is already here, but airlines are not necessarily negotiating those. So a bundle would mean for your program, you may say, any of my travelers can get reimbursed for Wi-Fi, and any of my travelers can get reimbursed for, let's say, checking a bag. You would be able to negotiate those kind of bundles. So you and your travelers can buy them either by the travel agency or by the online booking tool. And that could be negotiated, but you obviously can look for discounts on that, or you can look for other ways of how you want to negotiate that. Ideally, of course, even if you have something that you want from an airline, and maybe certain travelers of yours are able to buy those ancillaries and expense them. Even if you don't have a bundle negotiate, you would still be able to buy those ancillaries in the shopping experience. So it would be more of a travel cost than really an expense cost, depending on how your expense process works. So those are two aspects. The other thing, of course, continuous pricing, right? So that should affect your price points when NDC is enabled, and when you're obviously when the airline is using continuous pricing for distribution of the airfares. Negotiation, right? You will be able to negotiate more flexibly with airlines, not just about again the ancillaries, right? But you can look at more flexible ways of negotiating.